The gourd. Why did ancient people believe this simple fruit could save humanity? Imagine a flood so powerful that almost every human being disappears. There is nowhere to run. No city to hide in. No boat large enough to save everyone. But according to an ancient story from China, 2 people survive. Not in a palace. Not on a mountain. Not even in a boat. They hide inside a giant gourd. And when the flood finally disappears, they come out of the gourd. And a new human world begins. Sounds like fantasy, right? But stories like this have been passed down in Chinese folk traditions for generations. And here's the strange part. The gourd isn't important only in China. Across different cultures, this ordinary-looking fruit appears again and again. As a container, a medicine vessel, a musical instrument, a spiritual object, and sometimes, a symbol of life itself. So why the gourd? What did ancient people see in it? And why are people still placing gourds in their homes today? Let's find out. Chapter 1. The fruit that became a container. Before the gourd became a symbol of luck, before it appeared in temples, paintings, and Feng Shui traditions, people simply needed it to survive. A mature gourd can be dried until its outer shell becomes hard. And once the inside is hollowed out, you have something surprisingly useful. A bottle. A bowl. A storage container. A water carrier. A musical instrument. One plant. Many possibilities. For ancient communities, this was incredibly valuable. And perhaps this is where the story really begins. Because a gourd isn't just something that grows. It becomes something that can hold. It can hold water, food, seeds, medicine, and when human beings began telling stories about the world around them, the idea of something that could hold things became much bigger. What if it could hold life itself? Chapter 2. Now let's go back to the flood. In several Chinese ethnic traditions, there are stories about catastrophic floods that destroy the human world. One of the most fascinating versions comes from WiAuGem tradition. The story tells of a conflict involving the thunder god. The waters rise. The world is overwhelmed. People disappear. But a brother and sister survive. Inside a giant gourd, when the flood finally recedes, they emerge into a world that has been almost completely destroyed. In the tradition recorded by the Institute of History and Philology at Academia Sinica, the surviving siblings become WiAuGem and Nuomu, ancestral figures connected with the origins of the Maya people. But the story doesn't stop there. Related flood and origin traditions appear among other ethnic groups in China as well. In some Yi traditions, for example, a giant gourd becomes a refuge during the Great Flood, and after the disaster, the gourd becomes connected with the beginning of a new human world. The details change from one community to another. But the basic image is extraordinary. A world ends. A gourd survives. And life begins again. Think about that for a moment. The gourd isn't just a container anymore. It's a lifeboat. A shelter. A womb. A place where humanity can wait for the world to become habitable again. Chapter 3. What if the gourd was the beginning? And this is where the story gets even stranger. In some versions of Chinese origin traditions, the gourd doesn't simply protect human beings. It becomes part of their creation. Some stories describe people emerging from the gourd. Others connect pieces, seeds, or contents of the gourd with the creation of different peoples. These aren't one single Chinese myth. China has hundreds of local traditions, and the stories vary enormously. But the recurring image is fascinating. Something is inside. It is protected. It survives. And eventually, it emerges into a new world. It's almost impossible not to notice the symbolism. The gourd becomes a container, a seed, a womb, and a birthplace. And suddenly, that strange little fruit doesn't seem so ordinary anymore. Chapter 4. The Immortals Gourd. But Chinese culture gave the gourd another mysterious role. Medicine. And immortality. If you've ever seen traditional paintings of Chinese Taoist immortals, you may have noticed a familiar object hanging from their side. A gourd. One of the most famous examples is Li Duguo, the Iron Crutch Immortal, one of the legendary 8 immortals. He's traditionally depicted carrying a gourd. In Chinese folklore, his gourd is associated with medicine and healing. And suddenly the symbol takes on another meaning. The gourd that once protected life, now carries something that can preserve life. Medicine. Elixirs. The possibility of longevity. This is one reason the gourd became closely associated with Taoist imagery and Chinese folk traditions. But notice the pattern. Again and again, the gourd is connected with one idea, preserving something precious. Chapter 5. A spiritual container. And China isn't the only place where the gourd became more than an ordinary plant. In India, dried gourds were traditionally used as vessels. One famous example is the Kamandala, a water vessel associated with ascetics and spiritual practitioners. Imagine traveling with almost nothing. No modern bottle. No backpack. No convenience store. Just what you can carry. A gourd can hold the water you need, while reminding you that you don't need much else. The meaning here is different from the Chinese tradition. In China, the gourd became strongly associated with medicine, immortals, and good fortune. In Indian traditions, the gourd vessel could become associated with simplicity, spiritual practice, and renunciation. Different culture, different meaning. Same humble plant. And once again, the gourd is holding something. Chapter 6. The gourd in the Himalayan world. Now we come to the Himalayan world. And this is where we need to make an important distinction. The gourd is not a universal central symbol of Tibetan Buddhism. Tibetan Buddhism has its own highly developed system of sacred objects, rituals, and imagery. But throughout Tibetan and Himalayan cultural environments, natural materials, plants, medicine, containers, and auspicious objects have long been part of everyday and ritual life. So rather than forcing the gourd into a single religious meaning, it's more interesting to look at the bigger picture. Across Asia, ordinary objects from nature could become carriers of meaning. Something practical could also become symbolic. Something you could hold in your hand could remind you of something much larger than yourself. Chapter 7. And then we find the gourd everywhere. At this point, something starts to feel strange. China, India, the Himalayan world, and beyond Asia, gourds also became important in many African and indigenous American cultures. People used them as containers. They turned them into rattles and musical instruments. They used them to carry seeds and water. And different communities developed their own stories and meanings around them. We have to be careful here. There is no single gourd mythology. And there isn't one universal belief shared by every ancient culture. But there is a recurring pattern. People repeatedly took this ordinary plant and turned it into something meaningful. A vessel. A musical instrument. A ritual object. A symbol of fertility. A symbol of abundance. A symbol of survival. Why? Maybe the answer is hiding in plain sight. Chapter 8. Why the gourd? Look at a gourd. A narrow opening. A rounded body. A hollow interior. It almost looks like nature designed it to hold something. And that's exactly what humans needed it for. Water. Food. Seeds. Medicine. Music. The gourd could literally hold the things people needed to survive. So perhaps it wasn't surprising that people eventually imagined it holding something even more important. Life. Hope. Protection. The future. Maybe that's why the gourd became such a powerful symbol, not because every culture believed the same thing about it, but because the physical object itself invited the same question: what can this hold? And perhaps that question became symbolic. What do we want to hold on to? Our health. Our family. Our home. Our prosperity. Our hopes for the future. Chapter 9. From myth to Feng Shui. This brings us back to China. Over centuries, the gourd became deeply embedded in Chinese folk culture. Its shape, its association with medicine, its connection with Taoist immortals, and its role in ancient stories, all contributed to its symbolic meaning. Eventually, the gourd became a familiar Feng Shui object. Some people place gourds near entrances. Others keep them in living rooms, bedrooms, workplaces, or personal spaces. The exact practice varies, and it's important to remember, Feng Shui is a traditional cultural system, not a scientific guarantee of wealth, health, or safety. The value of a symbolic object can be something much more personal. It can remind you to create a peaceful home, to protect what matters, to stay focused on your goals, and to be open to opportunities. And that idea is what inspired our own Feng Shui gourd. Chapter 10. An ancient symbol for a modern home. When we created our gourd, we didn't want to make something that simply looked Chinese. We wanted to preserve the feeling behind the symbol, the traditional gourd shape, natural crystals, traditional herbal-inspired materials, and a design that could actually fit into a modern home. You don't have to believe that an object can magically change your destiny. You can simply give it meaning. Place it near your entrance as a reminder to protect your home. Keep it on your desk as a reminder to stay focused. Or place it somewhere personal, as a reminder of what you want to preserve and what you hope to welcome. Because sometimes, the meaning of an object doesn't come from the object itself. It comes from the intention we give it. Maybe that's why the gourd has survived for thousands of years. Different civilizations gave it different stories. Some saw shelter. Some saw water vessel. Some saw medicine. Some saw music. Some saw a connection to the spiritual world. And some imagined humanity itself emerging from it. But beneath all those different stories, there is one simple idea. The gourd holds something precious. And perhaps, we do too. So the next time you see a gourd, don't just see a piece of fruit. Think about the flood, the survivors, the immortals, the traveler carrying water, and the ancient human desire to protect what matters. Because sometimes, the simplest objects carry the biggest stories. If you'd like to bring this ancient Chinese symbol into your own space, you can learn more about our Feng Shui gourd through the link below. And if you enjoy stories about ancient symbols, Chinese Feng Shui, Taoist traditions, and the forgotten meanings behind everyday objects, subscribe. Because there are many more stories waiting to be discovered. I'll see you in the next one.